Hello, Amplify You. Michelle Abraham here, your host. I'm really excited to bring you an amazing Ask the Expert interview today with Janzen. Jan is an incredible woman who I've had the pleasure of meeting recently in the last few months, and she's been working with me on my sales. And so I thought, hey, this is a great topic. Let's bring Jan on our podcast, and she can share some of her brilliance with you. So welcome, Jan. Thank you for being here with us.
Well, thank you, Michelle. Thank you for having me. I'm excited.
You're welcome. I just want to share a little bit more about Jan to our audience. So Jan's been an entrepreneur for 40 years. She bought a home cleaning business at the age of 19 and then has been a serial entrepreneur ever since then, having businesses in a wide range of different industries. What's really cool about Jan is she's passionate about helping women fix their relationship or better their relationship of selling and money, particularly that tough money part of the conversation. Us entrepreneurial women know that conversation really well. So she helps coach women on money using the sacred money archetypes, which we'll talk about that in a few minutes, and is an advocate for the empowerment of women through financial freedom. And I love Jan's tagline. It's 6 figures is the new minimum wage. And I thought, what a better time than to really talk about this. And, a lot of women I meet have hobby businesses or they have rocking real solid businesses, but they always, no matter what, where you are in the entrepreneurial spectrum, it's the sales conversations that always seems to be feeling like, ugh, like they're not super strong. So Jan, thank you for being with us today. I'm super excited to dive into this.
Well, I'm excited because I agree with you. It is kind of the yucky, slimy, sleazy part of the conversation for lots of women. So it's tough, and I'm just here to make it a whole lot easier.
Awesome. That sounds great. And I would love to know what made you get into like the sales part of the conversation, because there's a lot of different areas with your entrepreneurial experience that you could have been a coach for. So what made you pick the sales?
Well, I'll give you the Reader's Digest version. In 2007, I decided I wanted to travel. And so I took my 6-figure healing practice on the road and I started to travel the world. And in the 9 years that I traveled, living out of 2 suitcases, I spent most of my time in developing countries. So, for example, I lived in like rural El Salvador for 4 months. I was in the Philippines. And I lived in every country in Central America. I lived in 5 cities in Mexico. And I saw a tremendous amount of suffering, animals, women, children. It was heartbreaking sometimes, Michelle. Yeah, the suffering that goes on in the world is really sometimes beyond what we can even imagine. And when I came back to Canada, because I decided that that's where I wanted to settle and live the rest of my life, that I wanted to make a difference. And when I took a couple of years to figure it out, and when I really sat down and I thought, how can I make the biggest difference in women's lives, in women's entrepreneurs' lives? It was they need to earn more money. I mean, it just came down to it. They need that 6-figure income. But I also realized that the easiest way for them to do that was to learn how to sell really, really well. And with grace and ease and confidence and fun and joy, all the words that they don't usually associate with selling. So that was what made me pick selling.
Wow, what an incredible journey. I want to go back to the traveling in a minute, but it's interesting, that a lot of the women that I work with or have worked with over the past, it's like a service that we're selling usually. And it's like, sometimes they attach that personalness to it. And it feels like, you don't want to be pushy. You don't want to be, but at the end of the day, you need to make money and to raise your family and to be able to help support your big cause and our big mission to help, make an impact in the world. And so I love what you're doing in helping women with their finances. I think that's really powerful. What do you think, going back to your traveling, what is, I love how you picked out the helping sell better will help change a lot of things with that ripple effect. So women can bring in more money into the homes that can improve their overall living and lifestyle. Any other things that you saw while you were traveling that really made you think that, like, yeah, this is the way to go. This is how I can make a huge impact?
I think I realized, especially when we lived in rural El Salvador for the 4 months, we were on a property with caretakers and we were right on the beach. It was really a tiny little village. And we got to know this family really well. And I speak fluent Spanish. So I got to know them really, really well. And the suffering was really incredible. The animals were being fed like a tortilla a day. It was heartbreaking. And it was just that they couldn't afford it. They didn't have any more money. It wasn't like they wanted to mistreat the animals. It was simply that it was a choice between putting a little bit better food on their children's plate or, giving these animals what I would call real food. And so we stepped up, we fed those animals for the 4 months. And we also decided that we would continue to help the family. And so that was in 2015. And so now 5 years later, the oldest has graduated, the first in her family to graduate. And we've helped the family out through providing a monthly, donation every month for food. But we've also done things like pay for their school supplies in January when they go back to school. They also, the difference that, and literally it's $100 US a month. So this is not a huge amount. Okay. That difference has meant that the kids have excelled in school because instead of having protein only 2 or 3 times a year, they now get it 2 or 3 times at least every week. Now, what a huge difference, right? We've been able to buy them a new bed. We bought them a new fridge I think it was a couple of years ago. We've just have made a huge difference in their lives. And the difference, I believe, that with just that little bit of money, we will break the poverty cycle in that family for those 3 children. Now, that just kind of blows your mind when you think that the ripple effect of, approximately $2,000 Canadian in a year, and you can change literally, the lives of potentially hundreds of people. Like that just told me we don't need to be all be gazillionaires. You just have to have the extra, Michelle. And that story just inspired me to get out of bed in the morning and to make a difference.
Yeah, and making a difference, we have to, I think there's, that's something I've learned over the last few years. You can't make a difference in the world from an empty pocket. And, in order to make a bigger difference in the world, we have to have the money to be able to do things like that, and be able to make that difference. And I just resonated so much with your story. When I first heard it, I was like, yeah, that's an amazing story. Where were your favorite places to travel? Just talking about the travel part for a second, because we know that's a soft spot of my heart too.
Oh, it's so hard to pick out one. I mean, there were so many incredible countries. I've been to now 48 countries in the world. I loved Vietnam, really loved Vietnam. It was such an incredible country. And we loved Morocco, loved Croatia. San Miguel de Allende in Mexico was another one of our favorite cities. We lived there for 6 months and almost bought there. It was pretty darn close to that being our home. But, every place that you go to, I think it's the attitude that you go with. Even sometimes the places that we weren't crazy about, we learned so much. It was interesting. We met neat people, or we got to try new foods or new, so it's always a new experience, right? But those countries always really stand out in my mind as being like just kind of top of the list.
Cool. I haven't been to any of those, so I'm excited to put those on my list. That's awesome. It's funny. Somebody said to me, I moved to Switzerland like a couple of days after high school to work for a family in Switzerland. And I remember one of my high school friends saying to me, why would you want to go to Switzerland? You haven't seen all of your own country yet. And I was just like, oh my gosh, like what a limiting mindset. Because as you just said, I think some of my best post-secondary education was from the years I spent traveling. Like there's so many different things you learn just about life and people and the connections you make. It's just incredible.
And then I think too, Michelle, to speak to that, I don't really think that most Canadians really have a true appreciation of how amazing this country is. I read a quote the other day that said, when our back is up against a wall, it's a silk curtain. And it really is in comparison to so much of the world. I believe the world would be a totally different place if every 18-year-old had to go spend a year in a developing country. And then come back and decide what they want to do with their life. Because I think that would open their eyes to just how privileged, how amazing our world is, even in its toughest and roughest times. It is really incredibly beautiful. It's incredibly quiet, but it's also very, very, very prosperous in so many ways.
Yeah. Yet the minimum wage is still not 6 figures for women, is it?
Oh my goodness. PayPal did a study in Canada. They've never done the study in the US, but they did a study here in Canada. and that the average woman entrepreneur in Canada earns $68,000 less than a male entrepreneur. Now that, when I read that, I just first I wanted to cry, and then I wanted to stop my feet and throw a little temper tantrum because I was so mad. And then I just decided, no, we're going to change that. That is not going to be the reality for women. I am just not going to tolerate that, because it's just not fair. Women work so hard, Michelle, and we deserve better than that.
Yeah, absolutely. So for the audience that's sitting at home right now thinking that, they have a business, they want to do podcasting, they're going to start podcasting. When you're podcasting, your audience really gets to know you as a host really well. Do you have any tools or suggestions for when our host of the podcast then offers, to a consultation or something for the listener? Is there some tools that you can suggest that how we work through that conversation when, the listener may know us, but we're just getting to know the listener? So is there any, I don't know if that's ever something, you've probably never been asked that question before, but.
No, I haven't. That's an interesting one. I think that there's a couple of things when you get to that tough money part about sales, right? And nobody likes that part. I do, but no, very few people do. But I think that if you have built up to that in a proper way, like if you have been engaging and you have been interested and you have been really, you really care about these people, then I think it makes a huge difference in how any offer is received, right?
Right.
If it's more about them than you, then it just makes such a big difference, because you start to build a rapport, right? And I know in podcasting, obviously, you're not going to get to know them personally. But the thing is, are you speaking their language? Like if I was doing a podcast for moms, then you'd have to speak their language, right? And so that's a huge part of it. And that starts to build rapport. And I think just coming across that you are really here to solve a problem. And that's all sales is. It's just solving a problem that people have, right? And we all have problems that need solving, which means we're all buyers. And we also can be potentially good salespeople when we think about solving a problem.
Yeah, that's interesting. I like that perspective. It's funny, earlier on in the podcasting space, one of the things that the demographic of podcast listener was male, CEO, highly educated, and were conditioned to purchase online. They made it above average income. And because they had an iTunes account, they made for very good customers. This is like, we're talking about 10 years ago. But the statistics have changed a little bit. But originally, that was one of the great things about podcasting, because your listeners had credit cards already on file, so they knew how to purchase online. Isn't that interesting?
Right. Yes.
Yeah. Now the thinking is the demographics. It's changed. It's definitely like a lot more women listeners now, but it's still more affluent, more educated, but very loyal listeners, which is really great. And I think it's because of that rapport that you're building with the listener or the audience, kind of rapport. And I love that. So tell us about the archetypes. I'm curious about the archetypes.
Well, the whole idea of archetypes is I like the term, it's the blueprint of our soul. So it's not like you're going to change your archetypes. You are what you are, right? So it's understanding. I work with 8 principal archetypes. And so when you do the assessment, which is really fun, as you know, because you've done it, and it takes less than 10 minutes, but it really asks you some really important questions about how you view things. And as you go through them, it then tallies up the score and you get your archetypes. And I work with the top 3. But what it does is it really pinpoints your belief system around money. And I've done now hundreds of readings, and it's really been quite remarkable how uncannily accurate they are. And I actually had fun this past week where I worked with the husband first, and then he wanted his wife to do it, and she did it. And then, so I did, then together, I then looked at both of their archetypes and showed how the differences in what was a priority, what was a trigger point, where the friction could happen, where they could support and work together, where they could better understand each other. It was really amazing. And I can see how, accountants or financial planners or people that could really benefit from something like that. I mean, every couple could, because money is such a hot topic, right? It's a volatile subject in a lot of people's relationships. And when you understand where your partner is coming from, it just can go, oh yeah, right, I got it, right? It just kind of takes the edge off of it.
And do you find typically like partners are on like totally opposite, like opposite archetypes?
Not necessarily, not necessarily, but where there's similarities, we want to show how that can really help balance, and where there's differences, then I can also show where, this is where he's thinking, this is how he's thinking, this is how you're thinking, this is how she's thinking, this is how he's thinking, and they kind of go, oh, right, got it. Like, it's just like the blinders come off, and they just can see each other in a whole new level of understanding, compassion, and hopefully, they can work out the money issues to a much greater degree.
Yeah, considering I think money issues is one of the top reasons people get divorced these days. That's a great place of starting a relationship. You will understand that.
And the thing is that for entrepreneurs, when you understand, like I've worked with a lot of women in the last couple of weeks where nurture is a primary archetype, which means that they just want to give away everything. Like they don't want to help, they don't want to charge, they don't want to raise their fees, they don't want, right? And so it's tough to earn, those six figures when you're constantly giving yourself everything away. And they'll say, but I give my time away. I don't give money away, I give time. Well, it's because they're often broke, so they don't have money to give away, but they also haven't really learned to value their time. And that's where I can really help and be of assistance.
Why do you think women have such a hard time with the sales conversations?
I don't know, because what's the crazy part about this, Michelle? And this is something that very few people know. Women beat themselves up, and they get beaten up all the time about they're not good at sales, and men are so much better at sales, and all the sales training is geared to men. And you know what? According to Gong, which does the review of all sales, and they've taped over 1 million hours of sales conversations and critiqued them, you'll never believe this. Women outsell men by 11%.
Wow.
Now, who would have thought that?
If only your ticket price was the right price, the right.
But you know what the thing is, Michelle, what's so funny is that we do everything wrong. Like we talk too much, we interrupt too much, we don't listen enough, we do lots of things wrong, and yet we still outsell men by 11%. Now, when I saw that, I was kind of blown away and thought, well, how did we do that, right? Like, how? But I realized that women are naturally good salespeople because yes, they talk a lot, but they listen at a whole nother level, right? They hear the nuances in the voice. They pick up the emotions. They're just in tune at such an incredible level that they can get away with doing lots of things wrong, and they can still outsell men. They just don't have the confidence, and they don't know that because nobody's telling them that. They're telling them they do it all wrong. And I say you probably do most things right. You just need some fine tuning. You just need some confidence. You just need a little bit of coaching, and it'll be amazing what you can do.
And I think women are probably really good at building the rapport too.
They're amazing.
And that's a real good thing too. Yeah. And that's interesting that women outsell.
I know. I think that statistic probably blows a lot of people. Like, what? Did I hear right? They're going to go back and make sure they listen to this correctly, right? That I really said that. And I really did. I mean, it wasn't me that said it, was Gong. And they're pretty reputable. This isn't the National Enquirer, right? This is legit.
Yeah. Wow. That's incredible. Yeah. That still blows my mind. You think, I don't know, I would just naturally think that men would be better at sales, but I guess selling from the heart is more of a thing these days, right? And I think maybe that's why women are really good at it too. It's more of a heartfelt, not the used car salesman kind of thing, right?
Oh, it is. When you connect with someone and you really listen to them. Like I sold a woman the other day, spend a day with me. It was a $2,000 package. And yet, really seriously, I listened to her for 25 minutes. All I did was ask questions. I learned about her. I found out about her. I kept on saying, so this is what I've heard. Am I correct in understanding this is what you need? And then at the end of it, I took 5 minutes to tell her what I was, what I could do for her. I gave her the price point, and it was like a yes. It was so easy because all I did was really listen, right? Just really listen.
Yes. What I'm learning from you too is that I think I talk too much in my sales processes too. I want to tell them everything about, all about what we're doing. So It's been great. I've been working with Jen for the last few weeks in our sales process of what we do at Amplify You. And so it's been really great. I'm not ready to reveal all the fun changes that we're making yet, everybody, but stay tuned. You'll see. We're just making things. Yeah, all good things, which is awesome. I love it. And, why do you think, being a sales, someone who helps people with sales, is it sales something that is, I feel like it's the last thing women are going to invest in. And have you found that? Whereas they know they need help with it, but it's like, let's do the marketing first. Let's do the branding first. Let's do everything else except for what actually is going to make the money.
I think that's changing, especially when they spend some time with me just talking to me, because I know
for sure when they talk to you, that's going to change. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'm just pretty also relaxed about it. Like, it's not that I'm going to beat them up at all. Like I really love, women entrepreneurs. I just think that we have the ability to change this world. And so I'm just here to help. And I think when they realize that they're not going to have to do something that's really awful or manipulative or pushy, I just take them back to what they naturally do. It just relaxes them. Right. So I think that, I know it's hard. What do you invest in your business? But the thing is, like, it's always the chicken and the egg, right? Do you do your marketing first, and then you got all these people, but oh my goodness, smells money marketing, and now you don't know how to sell to them, or do you learn how to sell so that when you do your marketing, you're ready? And someone who sells marketing is going to tell you the marketing, and I'm going to say, I think that when you spend the money on marketing, you really want to make sure that you're ready, you're trained, and it's not like it takes a long time. I mean, you can do this pretty easily and pretty quickly. So it's not like it's not like learning, another language. It's really about taking what you do naturally and amplifying it. There you go.
Love that word. It's everywhere.
I love that word. There you go.
Yeah. So going into a sales conversation, we've talked about a few different things. Any tips as to how to prepare for one in a really easy way?
Well, you obviously need to know who you're talking to, right? So today, there's no excuse to not know who you're talking to, because practically our whole lives are out there in social media.
You can Google them.
You can Google them. So going into a sales conversation well prepared, right, is critical. There should be no need. I mean, 25 years ago, we used to say, I don't know that. I'm going to have to check on that. But today, that's kind of not really kosher. You really have to know what you're looking at. So, if it's a one-on-one, or if you're presenting to a corporation, to be prepared. And then also just to learn how to keep your mouth shut and to listen.
It's really not for podcasters, let me tell you that.
Like, seriously, I know your mother used to probably say to you, you have 2 ears and you have 1 mouth, so you need to listen twice as much as you talk. And that's really the truth in sales. Ask questions, be interested, find out what's bugging them, find out what's worked, find out where they're stuck, find out where their challenges are, find out what their goals are. Don't go in with preconceived ideas about what you think they need. And I think that's a huge faux pas for a lot of salespeople. I think they need this, and they need packaging and blah, blah, blah. And they don't really take the time to listen and to really find out what's been going on in that person's life or their company's. It's just so critical, that part of it. And dig deep. People also stay really superficial. I mean, it's just crazy how superficial they'll stay. You need to dig deep, not because you're nosy, but that's really where the answers are, right? So someone says to me, well, I want to earn more money. Well, how much is more money? Right? How much is more money? Because my version of more money is going to be very different maybe than theirs, right? So they say, well, I want to earn an extra $5,000 a month. Awesome. So what have you done in the past to have earned an extra $5,000 a month? Because there's no point me giving them a solution that they've already tried, right? So it's that kind of digging deeper that I think a lot of salespeople shy away from. But people actually love it, because it tells you that A, you're listening to them, and B, you really care, and you're not just there to give them a one-size-fits-most solution.
Right. And everyone likes talking about themselves, so that's really a good thing.
And they do. That's right. They love it. They love it. They lap it up. Right? It's great. Makes your job so easy if you just listen. Ask
you listen and do it right. That's cool. Would you suggest that you gather information from your potential client before ahead of time, like on a forum or something like that, so you have more information, or would you just go and Google them and look them up on Facebook?
It depends. It depends how the conversation is happening. It's obviously if you're going into a corporation, you may want to have a form, but it really, I think that's going to depend on that person's style, because again, this isn't a one size fits all. Because if I tell you how exactly word for word what you need to say, it's going to sound scripted and it's going to sound really awful, right? It's going to sound stilted, unnatural, and people are going to be uncomfortable. So I'm always looking when I'm coaching people is what's their natural style, and let's work with your personality, because trying to make you into me or trying to make someone into you, it's awful. Nobody likes that.
And before going into a sales conversation, do you need to be able to quickly figure out what kind of style, like if they're an analytical person that needs to know numbers and details, or if they want to build a little bit longer, need to build rapport, that's important to them? Is there a way that you can tell those kinds of things that will help the process?
It's a good question. I'm one of those, it drives me crazy, because I had 3 businesses in the automotive industry. So I know the industry super well. And the first time I went to buy a car after my marriage ended, and I was a single woman buying a car, and I had this salesman who was just obnoxious because he just thought I cared about the color of the car, right? And the color, the kind of seats, and really, and I was like, I am a researcher. I am an analytical person. Okay. I want to know the details. And so before I went, I had done all the research, and he treated me so badly. And it was annoying because I wanted him to have a deep conversation with me about the car. He couldn't, because he didn't know anything about the car. I knew about the car, right? So that's where, as a salesperson, you really need to be prepared. If someone starts to ask you really detailed questions, don't brush them off, because you will irritate the living daylights out of them, right? Like, you'll just, unless I had to have bought that car at that time, I would have walked out and said, forget it, right? But that's what's so irritating about someone who doesn't listen to you, right? So if they're asking deep questions, then respond in kind, because they are asking for the details. And you may think they can't surely want to know that. Well, they wouldn't have asked those deep questions if they didn't, right?
Yeah, exactly. That's awesome. Yeah. And there's so many different people, different styles. So it's just kind of feeling your way through. But I think what you're saying, and what I want the audience to take from it, is be comfortable with what you're offering, so that you can be a little bit more fluid in your conversation and a little bit more flexible when you do get someone that wants to know the deep details, versus someone who just is surface level information is good.
And other people, they don't. And so then there's those salespeople, like, I like those details. I know them, but it doesn't mean they need to know them, right? You don't have to regurgitate every single thing you know about your product, right? Or service. You just listen, and then you give them exactly what they need. And then you keep on saying, if I heard, am I right? Am I right? I don't know. Am I right? And they'll answer you. They'll say, well, this is also important to me. Great. Well, thank you for letting me know that, right?
Well, Jan, you're pulling out all sorts of things that I'm clearly thinking that I'm doing wrong. You mean everyone doesn't need to know all the statistics about the podcasting industry before they start one? Is that what you're saying?
Well, you see, for you, I know you're planning on, putting this together in a video, but the thing is, I can skip through a video. I can't skip through a conversation, right? So if someone isn't interested, I can't say, can you please fast forward, because that's boring me to tears.
That's the point.
Right?
Yeah.
Right? And the problem is that so many people are not comfortable in the selling process, that if someone does stop them, and they've got it so well memorized, that if someone stops them, they don't know where to start again, because they've lost track, right? And that's a really scary place to be if you're not really comfortable selling, right?
Yeah, I can imagine. Oh my gosh, yeah, it's crazy. And I think, just getting more comfortable with, practicing, like any suggestions for practicing, like how do we get more comfortable with those conversations without having to have many clients say no before we get to the have done it right kind of conversation.
You do practice, and you practice with people who, other people, right?
Mm-hmm.
Before you go out, you don't start with your very, very, very best prospect, or, you just don't start there. You start with people in general, and you just start to have the conversations, and you critique yourself constantly. I mean, I'll get off of a sales conversation and think, okay, so what did I do well? What could I have done better? You're constantly improving. And I've been selling now. I mean, I was trained in sales by the time I was 6. So, I mean, I've been selling for over 50 years.
Mm-hmm.
I still will think, oh, I could have done that a little bit better here. That would have been better if I'd done this. You're never going to be perfect at it, but you certainly can practice. So practice with your partner, practice with the other business people, practice in a mastermind group, practice in a networking group, but practice, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then just go out and do it, because you don't get good at anything unless you do it.
Yeah. And fears of objections. Any great advice on conquering those?
That is my favorite. I just love objections. Okay, so let's
sort of punch them all down.
Oh yeah, no, I love this. I love this. Okay, so first of all, you have to understand that an objection is a gift. Okay, you absolutely have to have objections. You do not have a sales conversation without an objection. It's part of the conversation. We object all the time. I mean, Michelle, when was the last time you said no to something? Or I don't like that color. Ooh, I don't really like that. It's too spicy. I mean, we do it all the time, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So that's an objection, but we're not mean. We're not nasty, right? We're just simply giving people feedback. So an objection is feedback. That's all it is. So if someone says, well, I don't have the time, then that's because you probably haven't showed them the value. They just don't get it enough. And today, I find that sometimes people will talk to you as if you should know it. And lots of times people are embarrassed to say, I don't understand that. So they'll just say, well, I don't have the money, or I don't have the time, or I have to think about it, because we haven't spent enough time explaining it to them and making sure that they really understand. Or we've made them feel embarrassed about being stupid. I mean, I remember reading about one salesperson that he would say, well, the smartphone is just so simple, even a 5-year-old could use it. Well, then I would come in, and I'm not really techie, and then I ask questions. But if they had said that, I think, well, gee, I don't want to be stupider than, a little kid, right? I mean, that would be embarrassing, right? So we have to always make sure that we set up our sales conversations so people feel comfortable asking us questions and objecting. And when someone says, well, I don't like this, or I don't, this is what I'm not liking, or this or that, you just say, thank you. And then you just answer their question and continue to do your investigation and find out more about them and help them that way. It's a gift. An objection is a gift. It's a gift.
You guys hear that? It's a gift. Okay. It's not something scary.
It's not.
No is okay. No is not necessarily no either. It's just not the moment. Or I need some more information, right?
I need some more information. Yeah. Can you clarify this for me? So just relax around an objection and say thank you, and then just ask some more questions. Can you explain, can you explain why you would say that? Or can you tell me why you're thinking that? Or can you, just simple. I mean, just like you were talking to a friend.
Yeah. So natural curiosity too helps in sales conversations. Lots.
My 2 favorite words. I'm curious.
I'm curious.
I'm curious. Why do you think that? Like, I'm curious. And I am curious, right? A good salesperson has to be curious.
Right.
You can't do sales if you're not curious. If you don't care what the other person's thinking, then, you can't excel in sales, right? You have to be curious. So I'm curious.
That makes so much sense. I love it. So Jen's company is called Sellic Queen, right? Sales Queens International. Sellicaqueen.com. Is that right?
Yeah, sellicaqueen.com.
Yeah, I love it. And so the 8 archetypes, you can go and take this quiz. It's super fun. I've taken it, and it's interesting what shows up. And then Jen has got this offer for you to get her to go over it with you, which is super cool. So Jen, tell us where to go for that one.
So it's the number 8 and then moneyarchetypes.com. So 8moneyarchetypes.com. And then you just do an assessment, and then a calendar shows up, and you just fill in, and it's a 30-minute complimentary session. And yeah, we have a good time.
Yeah, and especially if you love doing those Facebook quizzes all the time, you'll love this one too. This one's even better. So, Jen, thank you so much for alleviating the stress and pain out of sales conversations, making us feel like we need to increase our minimum wage here to at least six figures, and having the confidence to do so. So, thank you so much for being with us. Any last words as we leave today?
Just, I think we need to really appreciate, if anybody's listening to this, you live in a very privileged part of the world, right? So just know that we have such a massive opportunity right now. It is a new world, right? And so what a massive opportunity to make massive differences. And so money is simply the gasoline on the fire of change. And so it's there. You know, look at Zoom. They're now more valuable than the top 7 airlines combined, right? There's people making money during this time, absolutely. And so you can too. It just may have to pivot a little bit, but it's absolutely possible. And we really do need more people, more entrepreneurs with more money.
I love it. Thank you so much, Jen, for being with us today. Look forward to bringing you back again someday and amplify you, all you guys out there. Make sure you go take that archetype quiz. It's so cool. 8moneyarchetypes.com. Yes. Make sure you go there, and I'll put that in the show notes too. So don't worry if you missed it. Until next time, take care, guys.